Good afternoon, children. As we have done how the British East India came to India and how they got the Diwani rights here, how they have started collecting tax from the Indian farmers and the introduction of permanent settlement and the problems faced by the permanent settlement. Today we are going to do a new system is devised. Now what was the new system which was introduced by the British government in India? Here they as we discussed earlier that they started improving the agriculture system in India. So under that system they started taking tax from the people, from the farmers. First of all, they introduced a new system. That system was known as Meherwari system. Meher means village. Earlier, they were facing so many problems regarding the tax collection. So they appointed village headmen for collecting taxes periodically. Now, under this Meherwari system, they appointed collectors. These collectors went from village to village, inspecting the land, measuring the fields, and recording customs and rights of different groups. And this revenue was fixed, but periodically they used to change the uh, revenue system. They used to increase and decrease the taxes over their crop. Now, the Meherwari system was introduced in 1833 during the period of William Bentinck, and under this system, they used to collect the tax from village to village by appointing village headmen. And first of all, they introduced this system in Central Province, Northwestern Frontier, Agra, Punjab, Gangetic Valley, and other fertile areas under British India. The Meherwari system and had many provinces of both Jamindari system and Rayotwari system. That means they were collecting tax from the Jamindari system under the Jamindari system as well as under the Rayotwari system. Now see, this system was not much successful. Then the Britishers, they introduced the new system. This system was known as Rayotwari system or the Munro system. Munro system was named after Thomas Munro. During British rule, he was the British officer and he introduced this system. Under this system, they collected tax directly from the farmers, and this was fixed. The revenue was fixed at half the value of their crop. Anyways, whether their crop is good or bad, but they have to give the half of the crop to the British government. So this system was very effective, and the Britishers uh, started collecting revenue from so many areas, and they included other provinces. This is Thomas Munro. He was the governor of Madras 1819 to 26. Here you can see the portrait of Munro. Now see how the crop was important for Europe. We have discussed enough about this. The British, they were sending their crop to the European market. From India, they were producing raw material and they were manufacturing it, or they were exporting it to the European market. Now the Britishers, they started forcing Indian cultivators to cultivate the commercial crop. As you can see, jute in Bengal, tea in Assam, sugarcane in the United Provinces or Uttar Pradesh, wheat in Punjab, cotton in Maharashtra, Punjab, rice in Madras. So from these provinces, they used to take the raw material and they were supplying it in the European market. Now they saw that the indigo was very much in demand in the European countries. Here they have given you, does color have a history? So we will see the history of colors. Now the rich blue color was commonly called as indigo, and it was on a high demand in European market using for dyeing purpose. In India became the biggest supplier of indigo during 19th century. Here they have given you two different prints. One is of kalamkari print and the second is a Maurice cotton print. Now what do you mean by kalamkari print? It is a type of hand printed or block printed cotton textile producing in Isfahan and Indian states of Andhra Pradesh. It was produced in Isfahan and Indian states of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. The Sri Kalasti style of kalamkari or kalankari, where they use a kalam or a pen for drawing a sketch, and then they used to fill the color on with their hand, with the help of hand. So you can see this is first they used to draw the sketch, then with the help of their hand they used to fill these colors, and it is very attractive. You can see the blue color is very vibrant, and this kalamkari was introduced. It was a traditional printing method. Okay, so it was introduced by Krishna Dev Rai, and later on uh, it was patronized by Dr. Kamla Devi Chattopadhyay. Now, Murray's print was introduced by William Murray. William Murray was a British textile designer, poet, novelist, and he used to design snake shade printed textile, peacock and dragon, woven wool furnishing fabric, and in late 19th century he founded the art and craft also. So the same way you can see the Murray's print, you can see the colors, how he has used the colors. Especially he used to print the curtains, bed sheet, and cloth and all in the Murray's print. Now, why the indigo was in demand in the international market? This we have done, like we know that in late 18th and in 19th century Britain started expansion of cotton production. Like the industrial sector was developing, and they started producing supplying raw material from India, like jute and cotton. They were supplying from India, but soon they realized that Indian indigo was much in demand in the European countries because it was giving a very rich blue color. So the British government forced the Indian farmers to cultivate more and more indigo. Now see, here they have given you that who was cultivating the indigo in which area. Like the French began cultivating indigo in Saint Domingue in the Caribbean island. Okay, and the Portuguese in Brazil, the English in Jamaica, and Spanish in Venezuela. So the indigo plantation came in many parts of North America. This way, soon the American indigo cultivation collapsed, and the Britishers they started turning towards India, because wherever the British colony was ruling, the color was not that good, and when they turned towards India, they got that the color was Indian blue color was giving them a very good rich blue color, which was in great demand. Now by this we can see that in 18th century the where in Bengal, the indigo market was very dominant. As we can see in 1788, only 30% of Indian indigo was imported, but till 1810, it raised up to 95%. Because of the Britishers, they started torturing the Indian farmers, they exploited the Indian farmers and forced them to cultivate indigo. See, girls, here they have given you one picture how the slaves in Saint Domingue they stop they stopped the cultivation of indigo, and how they were fighting against the French colony. Okay, these are the African slaves who were endangered from the African colonies to the Saint Domingo. Okay, in South Africa, these are South African slaves, and Gandhiji helped them They were facing the racial discrimination, as well as they were exploited by the French colony. So when Gandhiji was in South Africa, he fought for the right of these black people, you can say, or you can say the African slaves, and he became very popular. Mahatma Gandhi became very popular. Now, how they were cultivating indigo in India. For cultivation of indigo, there were two methods, niche and rayoti. So first of all, we'll read that what was niche cultivation. Under the niche cultivation, the indigo cultivators or the planters, they were producing indigo in the lands that he directly controlled. That means this land was belongs to the cultivators. The planters either bought the land or rented it from other zamindars and produced indigo by directly employing hired laborers. That means he has full authority on that land piece, and they were cultivating indigo personally. Okay, now next was the rayoti cultivation. Under the rayoti cultivation, the peasants had to sign a contract. Under this contract, the peasant received a loan from the planters to cultivate their land, as we discussed it, they were getting money in advance. Due to this, the peasants were forced to cultivate indigo in 25% of their land. The peasants received seed and plots for the cultivation from the planters itself. So they were providing them plow seeds, and even they were giving them loan for indigo cultivation, and it was a contract that in 25% of their land piece they had to cultivate the indigo. Now, what problems they faced in this cultivation? There were various problems faced by niche cultivation. The planters found it difficult to expand the area under niche cultivation because they were having a limited piece of land. Indigo could be cultivated only on fertile lands, and these were already densely populated. They attempted to lease in the land around the indigo factory and evict the peasants from the area. So, as we have seen that uh, the land should be fertile, and they were facing so many problems, like it was very time consuming crop, and they had to pay the loan to the jamindars, and this way this system could not became very successful. Now, indigo on the land of Rayot. How the Rayots were cultivating indigo. Rayot, already we have done that the under the Rayoti system, they were cultivating on the Jamindar's land. Okay, now they had to sign a contract, agreement or satta, we can say, that on 25% of their land they had to cultivate the indigo. Okay, but after taking the loan, the Rayots were committed to grow indigo on at least 25% land, and due to that they were facing problems. Okay, here you can see the picture how these planters or workers, they are harvesting indigo, and here the women, they are uh, you know they are carrying the indigo to the factory. Okay, they are loading the uh, indigo, and through this indigo will go to the factory area. Now, in this picture they have given you that how indigo was produced. We have seen that how these laborers, the workers, they were cutting indigo, they were harvesting indigo, how these females were carrying indigo to the factory area, and this is the factory area where the beater vat is there, fermenting vat is there. In beater vat, they used to beat indigo, they used to stir it, okay, in a solution for over 8 hours. Workers stamp and cut the pressed indigo pulp, rotted leaves taken out, solution stirred with paddles by wet beaters. Women carried indigo plants to the factory. Here you can say they are putting stamp on that, working, stamping and cutting the indigo pulp that has been pressed and molded. Here you can say they are pressing it and they are carrying it to the factory area. He is the wet beater who the indigo worker. He is standing with the mm, you know he will stir the wet with the help of this stick. Okay, and he will put it into the strong vessel, fermenting vessel they are saying. Okay, so what is fermenting vessel? It is a tank, barrel or other vessels where wort is held as a ferment into beer. Okay, so these are the fermenting vessels, we can say. Here they will be, he will be, the beater will be putting the fermented vat. Okay, so in this picture they have given, these are the women, so everything is clear here. Now see, we can see the condition of indigo planters. It was not that good. These indigo cultivators had to pay a lot, and their condition was very poor. Now Blue Rebellion was a peasants' uprising of indigo farmers against indigo cultivation. It started in March 1859 in Bengal. Thus, the Blue Rebellion started in Bengal. So, how the Blue Rebellion started? It was against the indigo cultivation. The planters, the peasants, they refused to uh, cultivate indigo. Okay, now here they have given you one question. Why did the indigo peasants decide that they would no longer remain silent? That gave them the power to rebel. Okay, so why? Because of that contract. The indigo cultivators signed a contract with the planters that they would only sow indigo. Also, the cultivators were not free to grow other crops. Even if he found that the indigo crop had exhausted the fertility of the soil. There came a time when he had no option but to revolt, because their land was not no more fertile. They were not able to cultivate the indigo, and on top of that, the Britisher had appointed the Lathials who used to beat them. They were strong men equipped with lathis or cane, you can say, and they used to beat the indigo planters during Blue Rebellion in 1859, assault the peasants who refused to pay the rent or the indigo tax. So they were frustrated, and the same time you can say it was uh, the incident after the first revolt of independence, which took place in 1857. You all know the causes behind the revolution was political, economic, military, religious, and social causes. So here we can say this was a social cause where they are torturing the Indian farmers, economic cause where they are taking tax from the peasants. So these indigo farmers, they were influenced from the revolt of 1857, and they also revolted against the British government. So the British government became worried about it. Finally, Queen Victoria, she declared that the condition of indigo planters is not that good. Finally, they introduced one indigo commission for that. Now, what was indigo commission? The commission declared that the planters were unfair and the farmers were not paid enough for their toll. The commission also stated that in future the farmers could refuse to grow indigo plants, and the planters did not have the right to force them. The Indigo Commission was formed in 1850s, and it was supporting the indigo planters or ryots in Bengal, and it was you know this indigo cultivation was in favor of the planters, and it was trying to find out the problem of the indigo planters. Here we can see that the indigo riots were supported by the local jamindars, because the local jamindars, they knew the condition of their field. The field was no more fertile, and for growing indigo they need a fertile land, and the village headman was also supporting them, and they were against the Lathials, and they they support the farmers. Now one man, you can see that vs Saturn, he took an interview of one of the indigo planters, Hadzi Mola, on Tuesday, 5th June 1860. He asked him that why he do not want to cultivate indigo. Then Hadzi, he told his problem, and he also replied that rather cultivating indigo, he would rather beg. Okay, so through this sentence you can say that how pathetic their situation was, how they were exploited, what type of problem they were facing, that they were ready to beg but not to cultivate indigo. Okay, and their situation became more pathetic when the synthetic dyes were introduced. Now, what is synthetic dye? Synthetic dyes made up of chemical components that can be harmful of humans, especially those who work in their production. Some of the chemicals found in synthetic dyes are mercury, lead, chromium, copper, sodium, chloride, toluenes, and benzene. Okay, so the synthetic dye, introduction of synthetic dye was not a good news for the indigo cultivators. Now they were unable to pay the get the proper money for that, and the Indian indigo cultivation industry collapsed. Then Gandhiji, as already we have discussed, that he was campaigning a movement against the black racial people in South Africa. Then Gandhiji came to India in 1915 at the age of 45, and he saw the condition of peasants, farmers, and urban laborers. Then he opposed to pay the taxes, and he united the people of Bihar. So the uh, peasants from Bihar, they requested Gandhiji to visit Bihar. When Gandhiji started the satyagraha to Bihar, this satyagraha movement was known as the Champaran movement. Now, what was Champaran movement? We can say that this movement was the introduction of synthetic dye. The demand of indigo decreased, which led the jamindars or planters to shed off their burden by increasing the rent burden on the peasants, which added to the existing pride of the peasants. That means the tax which the government was taking before from the planters was now increased. Okay, this way we have completed this chapter. Here they have given you indigo making in the West Indies. Everywhere, wherever the British colony was ruling, um, they were pressurizing the farmers, they were dominating them. So this way we have completed this chapter. Now you have to study all the things which I have discussed here.